It's me, Channel Dog. How you doing? I, for one, am pretty chuffed. For Sonic's 35th anniversary, Sega have been doing a little event called Sonic Rewind on the social media pages, giving the spotlight to each different past decade in Sonic's history. It started with the 2010s, and I don't think a lot of us had even realized it had started because the profile picture and overall display was just Sonic as we currently know him. He hasn't really changed since the 2010s. So this once again reignited calls for a brand new Sonic model, even though we were supposed to be representing a past era. That's the problem with when the past becomes the present, I guess. The 2000s saw a Sonic Advanced theming, and that was the best the page I think has ever looked, leaning fully into that Iwakawa charm. And for the 90s, I was fully anticipating we would see that same old render of Sonic by Naoto Ohshima and Akira Watanabe. You know the one, it's on the Sonic 1 box art. I figured it was either going to be that, or it was going to be Sonic Mania or something along those lines. Even though those games didn't come out in the 90s, but they have been a little loosey-goosey with this, as Sonic Adventure wasn't included in the 90s display either, probably for consistency. This is about the classic era. Now, if you were to ask me what I would go for, I would probably go for a Sonic R render, personally. I think the Saturn era was kind of the stylistic peak for classic Sonic, in my opinion. And I figured that would be an out-of-the-box choice, which is not something I was expecting Sega to officially do, but we actually did get a super outside-the-box choice. We got this Greg Martin illustration of Sonic sat in a director's chair wearing shades. I, for one, am very happy about this, as I feel like this version of Sonic has been incredibly underrepresented when it comes to Sonic nostalgia. I would have loved it if we had different international box arts for games like Sonic Origins, Sonic Superstars, and Sonic Mania that would feature these Greg Ray versions of the characters. And we did get different international reversible box covers for Sonic Origins Plus, but they still featured those Iwakawa versions of the designs, in lovely new artwork by Mark Hughes. And I'll say this, I'm super glad they're keeping that art style alive, but as I say, it is a shame that we haven't seen much of the Greg Ray Sonic in the recent years, up until now. And I've seen that this has caused quite a bit of debate among the Sonic community on social media, as anything Sonic usually does, with the exception of the Sonic Rewind 2000 celebration, where I think it was kind of universally agreed that the profile looked fucking awesome during that time. I really hope the folks at Sonic Team are listening to this and are taking notes on kind of where they can go next with Sonic on a stylistic level, because I do agree with the increasingly common sentiment that Sonic in the recent years, particularly post-2010s, has stylistically stagnated, and that the character designs aren't really being done justice by the current art style. So I am hoping that the response to these Sonic Rewinds is giving them some data on this. For the most part, people seem very happy with what they've done for the 90s as well. A lot of people seem to be sharing in my joy at seeing the Greg Ray version of Sonic represented. But there seems to be another party, which I don't think by any means is a majority, that do not feel that Greg Ray's Sonic is an adequate representation of Sonic in the 90s. And I'm not here to just tell those people to shut the fuck up. That's not my plan by any means. As I can see a little bit of where they're coming from in that Sonic ultimately is a Japanese franchise. It originated in Japan. So if you really wanted to kind of sum up the 90s and Sonic, it would be probably wiser to use a lot of the Japanese stuff. But that being said, it's also important to remember that a lot of the people entering the social media space these days have grown up on Sega's more recently very curated vision of Sonic. Games like Sonic Generations, Sonic Mania, and Sonic Origins have all kind of solidified the Japanese version of classic Sonic as the de facto version. And I do think there is something to be said about preserving the culture that created Sonic within Sonic as an entity itself, as that Japanese DNA does mark a lot of what makes Sonic so special. The point I'm making here is that yes, the Japanese Sonic is the original Sonic. And at the end of the day, that should always be honored. And I think in many ways, it has been. That's not to say I think that this curated vision of classic Sonic that we've been getting for the past few years has been perfect by any stretch. No, I think even in Japan, it was perceived that classic Sonic would speak, as evidenced by games like Sonic CD. And they do tend to lean more into the cutesy factor these days, I think, to differentiate him from his modern self, so a lot of the kind of Sonic history that we get these days is kind of bastardized. But that is very much what Sega have been been trying to push as the classic Sonic, a sort of bastardization of the Japanese version. Plus, the overall over-curation of the Sonic franchise doesn't just end at the Greg Ray classic Sonic. There's been a major effort to homogenize the versions of the Sonic brand. Modern Sonic is this guy, classic Sonic is this guy, and you got movie Sonic as well. And I think further evidence of that over-curation is the fact they didn't use Boom Sonic as the Sonic representative of the 2010s, and instead went for the confusing choice of using Sonic as he looks today. They could have made it less confusing. Would people make jokes? Absolutely. But it'd be a whole lot clearer that this was a 2010s rewind, and there'd be a lot less discourse. Getting back to the subject of over-curation, though, in 2017 we saw the end of the Archie Sonic series, which was kind of the last remnant of a lot of the USA Sonic lore. And since then, none of that has been acknowledged. And there are a lot of folks out there that are happy with that as it cleans up the brand and better maintains the integrity of the original Japanese Sonic vision, even if it's not perfect. But I think people saying this and kind of leaning very hard on this kind of Japanese Sonic purism are not really seeing the wood through the trees. Sonic the Hedgehog is fundamentally international. He was born in Japan, and like many fictional characters, he went through a number of different hands before landing on a brand that was all about being international. Sonic was made with USA markets in mind. And you can debate whether it was really necessary to make adjustments to things like the box arts and the versions of Sonic that you see on those designs, but the fact is, the USA is where Sonic took off. This reinterpretation worked, and perhaps for the largest percentage of people that grew up with Sonic in the 90s, Greg Ray's Sonic is how that Sonic was. The reinterpretation of Sonic from this mythical, mysterious little guy to a motor-mouthed dude with tood rebel is how a majority of Sonic fans in the 90s grew up with Sonic. Which is why games like Sonic Origins don't feel so much nostalgic as they do curated. This American vision of Sonic spawned us The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog TV series. It gave us the Saturday morning cartoon with the Freedom Fighters. Those ideas were carried over into the Archie Sonic series, which was home to a whopping 684 publications. That legacy is way too big to ignore. No, I don't think internationalization should ever result in the erasure of the character's Japanese roots. And I think the recent attempts at kind of blending Japanese Sonic with USA writing sensibilities while anchoring the characters to a strict set of guidelines ultimately hasn't done anyone any favors. Which is why it's so refreshing to just see this version of Sonic officially represented once again. I'm really hoping that this will lead into things like Archie Sonic getting a little bit of representation in these kind of rewind thingies. I'm aware that some characters are wrapped up in rights disputes, but like the majority of them are ultimately owned by Sega. There's no real reason why they can't do this. But I think just seeing the Greg Ray version of Sonic again in an official capacity really kind of represents the Sonic franchise learning how to do nostalgia right. We have seen so much of Iizuka Sonic running around Green Hill Zone that it's not even nostalgic anymore. That's just the current thing. And I mean, at the same time, there's always been a distinction between the USA interpretation of Sonic and the original Japanese version. I mean, we're seeing it right now. Movie Sonic is effectively USA Sonic, while modern Sonic is effectively Japanese Sonic. And I'm really hoping that in years to come, Sega won't just sweep him under the rug, because he matters. He's been instrumental to the success of the franchise today, just as Greg Ray's Sonic was. And again, you can argue that had they just stuck with the Japanese versions, it might have been a success, but we don't have the data to back that up while we do with the current way things have gone. At the end of the day, the Sonic Rewind project is a Western thing going out on Western social media pages, and you can tell it's Western because the majority of the fucking merch is USA exclusive. God forbid you have the audacity to be born on a different landmass. So I think using the Greg Ray Sonic here was the right call. That said, I hope the end of the Sonic Rewind won't stop them from representing different versions of Sonic once again. I'd like to see Boom Sonic again. But let's go on further. I want to see Sonic from the original Shogakukan mangas. I'd love to see Nicky the Hedgehog as the Sonic social media page's profile picture, even if just for like a week or something. I mean, I'm also British, so let's get some Fleetway love in here. It just feeds back into my philosophy of do it all. This character has a rich, international, storied history, and I think the whole thing can be celebrated. By all means, have favorites. My personal favorite interpretation of Sonic is the one from the Japanese version of Sonic X. I love that clever little bugger. Obviously, that's not to just say any country, any writer from any background can do whatever the fuck they want with Sonic. Like, turning him into Bubsy the Bobcat is probably a step too far. But this franchise has a lot more to celebrate than it has been celebrating for the past couple of decades. And I, for one, am happy to see that another Sonic has been welcomed to the party. Now, if we could just get some merch, like, give me some merch of Mohawk Sonic, that would be awesome. Imagine a Jakks Pacific USA Classic Sonic figure. I'd be all over that. And I think if Sonic Rumble is kind of struggling with interest at the moment, adding the Pingus version of Dr. Robotnik would set the internet on fire. Everybody who grew up with YouTube poops, so basically everybody on the internet, would be logging in to unlock that Pingus version of Dr. Robotnik. Maybe I have an agenda because he's my favorite version of Dr. Robotnik. The bottom line is, it's okay that different versions of Sonic exist. They only enrich the franchise. Everybody's got their own little interpretation of the character. Yes, there is the original intent of the creators, and that should always be acknowledged, and ultimately in some capacity honored, but we can always welcome different takes. It's not like every other fictional character ever has that. God forbid Tom and Jerry fans react to the Gene Deitch and Chuck Jones era the way Sonic fans react to Greg Ray's artwork. Things change from time to time, territory to territory, and that is good. As long as we're not erasing anybody else's contributions, which has been happening, as far as I'm concerned, we are golden. Comment below your thoughts. What is a Sonic that you would like to see represented? That's what the comment section is for. Like the video, dislike the video, hype the video, whatever you gotta do, you know what you're doing. And now, a special thank you shout out to my very generous patrons in the $5 and above tier. Ladies and gentlemen, and everything between and outside of that, let me present to you Manalza, KB, Twilord, Biotin, Sirius the Skeptic, and Mr. SP. KO Bennett, Blue Dog is burned into my screen, Dare, Denny, Sad, Goku, Ghostly Phantom, Xanderwolf, Channel Pup, just another evil robot clone claiming discarded naming rights, Council of Geeks, SSS06, Carlex, RT0, Marv Animation, Grant Allen, Josh Strider, Silver, Ben Raven, Basic Content, Gideon Wells, Pressplater Jason, Joseph Tribble, and Choi Henshin. Thank you folks for being so generous. For the rest of you, there are so many other videos on my channel that you might be interested in, so please go and check out the buffet. Peace.